Back in New York as the 53rd NFL Draft continues. The Chargers, you see the time remaining, just over 6 minutes for the 15th overall selection. I'll take my flyer and say wide receiver Anthony Miller, but we shall see. Let's go now down to Philadelphia, where Pete Axtell was with Buddy Ryan, obviously happy over Keith Jackson. Gentlemen.
You're right, Chris. Coaches are always obviously happy at this time when they get a choice, but the other side, were you surprised and disappointed when the Raiders got Terry McDaniel as the 9th pick?
No, I thought Terry was an excellent player, but if Terry and our guy had been on the board, we would have still taken the tight end. He's a great player. I think one of these guys come out every 10 years, and you can't afford to pass him up. The way I look at it, we passed up Kevin Winslow one time. And, you know, I could understand that, and I know Buddy Ryan wasn't going to make that mistake. We think we got a great football player that will help put us in the Super Bowl.
How did you look at the 4 picks right in your own division? Dallas, we all knew was going to take Irvin. Then the Cardinals surprised a little bit, Kenneth Harvey, and the Giants with Eric Moore. How do you think this affects what's going on with your division?
Well, I think that the Giants wanted to help their offensive line. I think they did an excellent job doing that. Apparently, St. Louis is not pleased with their linebackers, and Harvey's a great athlete. We were real impressed with his workout at Indianapolis. Of course, the wide receiver going to Dallas, that just makes it that much tougher. They got 2 or 3 guys where you got to worry about instead of Herschel now. So, I mean, I think the old division's going to do well in the drafts, just like it did in the playoffs.
The question with an athlete like Jackson, of course, everything physical, everything you can measure is there, and yet he played for a team that didn't throw. How can you be confident that he will be another Winslow type of athlete?
Well, I don't think there's any question about it. And most college teams don't throw that much, and he's a great blocker. He's got great speed. He adjusts the balls well. When he runs a football, he runs it better than most backs do on reverses and things. So. He's just a great pick, and he's our starting tight end right now, and as position's his, he just got to lose it.
I heard some of the assistant coaches as you were getting ready to make the pick, they were saying get ready to start diagramming some tight end reverses.
That's right. We're going to feature him.
Okay, thank you, buddy. Back to you in New York, Chris.
All right, Axel, buddy, thank you very much. And so maybe the next round, Philadelphia goes with defensive help. I'll take my flyer now, 26 rounds early. Michael Brim, maybe, if he's around DB.
Eric Allen, if he's around.
Okay, you're on record.
And we agree on Anthony Miller for the Chargers, right?
What, am I going to lend you that one now?
Did I say Elliott 10 minutes ago?
I thought you said Elliott.
Yeah, I've come off.
Well, I said it's Anthony Miller. We shall see, because the Chargers, of course, with a new quarterback now, the Fouts era is long gone. The Chargers... with Mark Malone, a quarterback. It's funny, while we talk San Diego, perhaps Malone's best day last year was against San Diego. Tom, you remember that he looked like Bronco Nagurski running the ball that day?
Well, he might be a better running back than a quarterback. It's still under question, but I think certainly you are the guru.
Oh, I don't know.
And Anthony Miller
we'll see.
Is maybe the guy.
We'll see. And Anthony Miller, who is, we hope to be hooking up with him when he goes, and he will go shortly. Another one of those Tennessee receivers, that's for sure. So San Diego, like we say, Dr. Zim, he's with Malone. I mean, they're going a totally different way. But with Anthony Miller, you can't pass up his value.
Al Saunders at the league meetings said that there are 5 to 6 wide receivers. Any of them would be a good first pick for him. They wanted Eric Moore, the tackle. They felt that they needed a right tackle. Eric Moore was gone. It was a choice. Do they go with the coach, give him his wide receiver, or do they try and get a big guy who will play many years? And I think the coach has won it, and I think Miller is going to be their guy. Well, I agree with you. Mainly because we both know.
But I said it before we knew. With Charlie Joyner as an assistant coach, he certainly can pass along some of the tools of the trade if it is Miller. Let's go over to the board, as the Chargers are certainly getting their money's worth with this pick. They're spending all 15 minutes.
Yeah, spending off 15 minutes. They've dropped a dime, too. We understand that Anthony Miller has gotten that phone call already. So the word that we have, and it's unofficial, is that already the Chargers have made the call to Anthony Miller, and he's in Phoenix with his agent Bruce Allen at a gathering. And Anthony Miller, there he is, Anthony. Hello, Anthony, and we'll be getting to you shortly. Apparently already, Anthony, if you can hear it, have you gotten the call yet? I guess you can't hear the monitor there. A wide receiver out of Tennessee. So if it is Anthony Miller, Steve Ortmeyer putting the pieces together, shaking a few things up in the front office and trying to get the Chargers back on track in the front office.
Well, he needs a wide receiver. We talked about that one-back offense, but when you look at Gary Anderson, you know, you're talking about a guy who also is a running back converted to wide receiver. And when you look at Anthony Miller, we talked about him having 10th on the board. We were talking about him going in this general area because he turned out to be the best player available. So you have to agree with this pick 100%. Anthony Miller will be a big play home run threat for the San Diego Chargers. But right now you have to say quarterback. If they can solve that problem, Miller can be a lot more effective.
It's like betting on yesterday's wood. Anthony's on the phone. Hi, Anthony, and we'll be getting the pick announced in just a second. A dead lead pipe cinch certainty, we assume. Miami will be up next to be followed by New England, and this is the 15th pick in the first round. And of course, you talk wide receivers out of Tennessee. You're talking just blue chip selections through the years.
Well, they have disappointed some of the wide receivers from Tennessee, but they've been coming out with their heralded coming out.
San Diego selects Anthony Miller, wide receiver, Tennessee.
As Claude Rains said in Casablanca, I'm shocked to see that gambling is going on in this casino. And he's getting the word now. Well, there have been some disappointments, though, out of the Volunteers, but Stanley Morgan, though, Willie Galt, Tim McGee, wouldn't call him disappointing.
Clyde Duncan, you know, was at this point Darrell Wilson, Mike Miller. Those were the three that were really disappointments. But one thing Anthony Miller has that some of the other disappointments didn't was that toughness, and I think that's the key here. He will come across, catch in traffic. He'll take that reverse wide receiver screen, and he'll go attack. He won't just go out of bounds when he sees some defenders coming up to hit him. So, you know, his toughness, I think if he would have played the whole year instead of going down with that injury early on, which sidelined him until maybe midway through the season, I think he could have very easily been a top 5 to 8 pick instead of a mid-first round choice.
Let's graphically put him under the microscope. Grade him out and take a look at the selection of San Diego. Anthony Miller, wide receiver out of Tennessee. Outstanding speed. Yeah, 4.40. In fact, he ran under 4.4 at the combines. Came out of the junior college ranks in California, and as a junior averaged nearly 19 yards per reception. Outstanding kickoff return, Matt, as well, giving a team, now the San Diego team, an extra dimension. Had the injury in that kickoff classic of his senior year and missed half the season, but gives you that dimension. Not only can he catch the football, but as we alluded to in the conversation with Buddy Ryan about Keith Jackson, with that kind of size and speed, certainly, and really speed for Anthony, reverses and screens. He gives you that extra added dimension. Best grade is for quickness. Lowest grade is for blocking. You don't want a guy 5'11" blocking. You want him catching and running.
Well, we saw the big playability on that highlight film. Everything was a big play, and I think when you see an Anthony Miller, a guy can be that home run threat. In the Senior Bowl, he blew past Jarvis Williams like he was standing still, and I think scouts realized then that Jarvis might have to move to safety. But I think it was also a credit to Anthony Miller, a guy who can really blow past people. He regained that 4.38 speed. So even after the injury, he didn't lose any speed. He ran a 4.38 at the combine, which was outstanding when you consider he missed some time and was recuperating. So I think the fact that he didn't lose any of that quickness contributed to him going at this point. But like I said, Bob, if he would have played the whole year and had more production, I think he would have been a top 5 to 8 pick and been considered a franchise guy in a class with the top 3.
Did he make Mark Malone a better quarterback?
He can't hurt, but, you know.
No, he can't hurt. But will he make him a better quarterback?
I can't say. Right now, I'd say that the San Diego Chargers' hunt for a quarterback has to continue.
You know, for all the talk about running backs in this draft, and certainly wide receivers and running backs, really the two quality positions we talked about, the selection of Gaston Green in the number 14 hole is the latest selection of a running back in the first round since Ethan Horton's selection back in 1985. So we're deep, but we waited until the 14th pick.
Well, we were talking about it from the start. We were talking about there not being any franchise running backs, and we talked about all the depth at running back, the fact that it was a lot of middle rounders. That's why we thought some clubs might consider trading down, but I think that's the key here. No franchise guys, but a lot of good, sound, productive backs that can also catch the football as well. We still see Craig Hayward sitting there, who I really believe if Craig Hayward would have had been able to keep that weight at a reasonable level his entire career, I think Craig Hayward could have been a top 5 pick. I think teams now are questioning whether it's going to balloon back up. Is he going to have a nick and miss a week or two of action and then all of a sudden go back to 275, 280? I think the fact that the weight situation is keeping Hayward down, not ability, because Hayward can play with anybody. There's no question about that.
He's still out there, but Anthony Miller locked up at least on the fire on the draft board with Roy Firestone now standing by in Phoenix. Roy?
Thank you, Bob. And I guess the big story here in Phoenix is that Anthony Miller is going home of sorts, nearby home. Of course, you played high school football at Muir High in Pasadena. San Diego is the selection. You're the 4th pick overall. How do you feel?
I feel real excited, and I like the town and everything, and hopefully, you know, I can do well down there.
Of course, Lionel James, the receiver for the Chargers. They have Wes Chandler down there. You think you're going to play a lot in the first year?
I think so. I mean, they drafted me pretty high, so I'm pretty sure they're expecting me to do a lot.
Anthony, I think if there was any hesitation on the part of the scouts, it was the fact that you suffered a knee injury and you suffered in your senior year. Obviously, they didn't feel there were any ill effects from there was actually no surgery at all. They didn't cut your knee.
No, they just scoped it, and everything was fine, and it's real healthy. I ran faster than I ever ran before.
Even after they phoned you just now, a few moments ago, you still had the feeling that maybe this could have been premature. Your family's right behind you, broke out the champagne. You were a little worried that Brad Muster might go to the Chargers, even after they told you were going to go to the Chargers.
Yeah, but they were like saying, well, we're sure about it, but we're still talking about it. And I'm like, oh, man, I'm going to get up here and look like a fool.
Yeah. Well, it's a great day for you, and I know that it's good to be going back home in the sunshine in San Diego. We want to wish you the best of luck this year.
Thank you.
Okay. All the folks here want to congratulate you, too. That's the scene here in Phoenix. Anthony Miller goes to the San Diego Chargers, and we'll come back with more draft coverage here on ESPN.
I was about to buy a new car, but I thought I'd compare American Dream Lease. Well, for the same price, I leased my car from American Dream Lease, a mobile car phone, and a fax machine for my office.
Anything you can buy, you can lease for less with American Dream Lease, all with our personal commitment to service, an authorized agent of Metrophone.
And I have a little money left over in the budget for this year's vacation. People say you can't buy happiness, but you can lease it at American Dream Lease.
American Dream Lease, we're making dreams come true.
You need a lot of power to do a job like this.
At Laurel Lawnmower, you'll find the equipment you need for a lot size or acreage. Blowers, edgers and trimmers, tractors, hedge clippers, snow throwers, and more.
I depend on Laurel Lawnmower for service.
And I depend on their convenient location and hours that fit my schedule.
See the Larrys at Laurel.
The battle for the Stanley Cup is underway with the divisional playoffs. The action continues tonight, live on ESPN.
The next selection, the 16th overall, belongs to the Miami Dolphins, and recently had a chance to talk with Coach Don Shula, and guess what side of the ball he's looking at?
We have to upgrade defensively. And last year we went for a defensive lineman in the first round, a linebacker in the second round. This year we're thinking possibly corner or safety. We still would like to get the pass rusher. I think everybody would like to have the great pass rusher. So we would have to give a defensive lineman consideration too.
So now the question comes. He's talking about defensive linemen. Is it a reach at the 16th pick to go with Stubbs, who played across town from Miami?
Yes.
Is it a reach to go with Scott Davis, defensive lineman? What do you think, Tom?
I've got the pick down as Michael Dean Perry, and even though he's not the great pass rusher, he's the guy who's going to solidify the line for him. It's not the fridge all over again. This kid is a kid who is going to come in shape. He's going to be ready to play 60 minutes. I think the pick is going to be, and I'll say it before I hear the phone call, Michael Dean Perry.
You implying
and you did. No, you did.
The problem with Perry is some say in a 3-4 he's not the nose tackle. In a 4-3 he's fine at a defensive tackle. Does this make sense, Perry?
Well, there's another problem with Perry. The pick is too logical. That's what they need. That's exactly what they need. And he is a legitimate mid to high first-round pick. He's a terrific nose tackle, defensive tackle. And when I talked to the guy I know from Miami, I said, it's got to be Perry, right? And he said, no, Clifford Charlton, a linebacker from Florida. So my choice is Clifford Charlton only because Perry makes too much sense, and this is what they told me.
A lot of people had said Clifford Charlton, too, and Shula was saying a couple days ago to some reporters, well, everyone has me picking Clifford Charlton. Why bother to pick? But maybe Miami trades down. We shall see. We know that one team has already chosen one player, the Rams with Gaston Green. They're coming up again in the first round. Howard Balzers with John Robinson of the Rams. Howard?
Well, John, the first running back in the draft, that might have been a little bit of a surprise. A lot of people, there was so many names mentioned over the course of the weeks, but you ended up with your first choice, and that was Gaston Green.
Well, we think he's clearly the best breakaway, best speed back in the draft, and maybe in the last 2 or 3 years. He reminds me, or if you were comparing a Tony Dorsett type of player, I think he can be heavily involved in the passing game. We're trying to move towards the passing game with our backs with Jim Everett. We think he can come in and share the job with Charlie White this year. Durability has been one of the question marks about him, but he has no injury. He's a completely healthy player. His durability has been short-term injury. He's 21 years old, will be 22 in August. So he's a very young, very fast, very talented player.
But this isn't going to be a guy that you might project right off the spot who's going to carry the ball 30 times a game.
No, that's as I say, that's not what our intention is, or that's not how we would use him. We think he and Charlie can make a tandem back there, and we would use Gaston in the passing game. And I think Dallas used Tony Dorsett over the years to get the most out of the kinds of skills that Dorsett had. Green, to me, is a similar type of player.
Now, obviously, there was a lot of speculation about Craig Hayward. You had your pick of the guys. How was it a tough decision?
I think it's a very tough decision. I think it, it took us down to the final moments to really decide. But there was some speculation or some anticipation on our part that Green would be gone when he came through. Pretty much, we've seen him here so much and know, I think, so much about him having been at UCLA that the speed, the potential breakaway threat was too much to pass.
So what can we look forward to on your next pick coming up in a couple?
Well, we're going to try the best guy there. I mean, we've said all along we were going to stay where we were and pick the best guys that were there, and that's what we're trying to do.
Thanks, John. We'll get you later in the broadcast.
Okay, thanks.
That's John Robinson, coach of the Rams, and they coming up in another pick. Who knows what it'll be? A wide receiver. You heard Coach Robinson say the best player that's there. We'll hear that a lot today, I'm sure. Back to Chris Berman in New York.
Yeah, it's one of those things that we hear every year. This is our 9th straight year televising the NFL draft, and of course we welcome you to our weekend session. First time the draft has been on a Sunday is they go back to the two-day procedure that they did prior to 1983. The top rounds will be today, the rest will be tomorrow. Now, as far as Miami goes, it's not as if they haven't tried to draft defensively lately. Last year they went one Boza, defensive lineman from BC, and Rick Graff, the linebacker from Wisconsin, in their blue chip picks. In '86, the Dolphins picked John Offerdahl, who's turned out to be a tremendous player for them with their second-round selection. They didn't have a 1 then. In '85, they didn't have a 1 or a 2. In '84, they picked Jay Brophy, linebacker from Miami. So they've tried it, and this could be another year's in where maybe, they haven't got the standout blue chipper, and it doesn't look like there are any there right now.
Oh, I think Perry's a blue chipper.
But you said it's too logical.
It's too logical. It would be a great pick for them because they need gut pressure. Now they have Boza who can put on a little bit of a rush. They have linebackers that maybe can do a little blitzing. You can get outside pressure, but if you can get that gut pressure, then you're really somewhere. And I think that's what this kid will give them.
It's interesting to note that in the first 15 picks, the offense only leads 8-7. And why we say that is that we thought coming in, and Paul, you thought so, and Tommy too, that half of the picks in the first round, of course, we still have some to go, would be either backs or wide receivers.
No, it's 9-7 if Miami takes defense. I gave you that note. it's 9.
Listen, say what you mean then on these things. See, now
I made it too complicated.
I finally sit down here with Zim after these years, and he's okay, I can see the way he operates. Make the TV guys look bad. Never mind. So the Dolphins are up next, and then the New England Patriots. So two teams in the AFC East, which is becoming an intriguing division, a division that anybody can win. Of course, Buffalo Bills do not have a first-round pick. Neither do the Indianapolis Colts. Colts don't have a first or a second. The Bills have a second, but no first. There is word that they might like to move into the first round. So this a place where Miami and New England have a shot, where Indianapolis and Buffalo do not. However, the question is, are these picks late in the first round of this draft equivalent to second rounds of other drafts? What do you think?
Oh, no. You're not going to get a Lorenzo White or a Brad Muster. You're not going to get people like that in the second round of another draft.
Why would Miami
I think
go
this is a good draft.
Why wouldn't they? Couldn't he? I mean, he catches the ball great for a big guy. Why wouldn't that work?
He'd be a very good pick for them. He's a good player, but he's got an ankle. He's scaring people because he didn't take part in the workouts, and they're asking questions about him. And when you're drafting, especially when you're a team that's below 500 and you're drafting in the first round, you don't want to take chances.
It just makes sense to me, but then again, that's another one that I think they could change their offense a little bit for Muster. We have about only a minute and a half left for the Dolphins. to make a selection.
They must be trying to make a trade if they're taking this long.
Maybe to go down, as there was word that they did not like the Charlton that everyone had given to them in print. And maybe they will be. We haven't had a trade yet today.
No.
We're due. It's the due theory.
Yeah. How about Ironhead for him? No. Too iron.
No, I don't. I don't think so. Let's see. The Dolphins are filling in the card. And there it goes. So Miami, there it is. I have in my hand the envelope. And so the Dolphins and the crowd getting edgy here. They say the Dolphins are taking too much time. But they have less than a minute to go. And then New England will be up, followed by the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the Steelers, you certainly think, would go a running back.
Steelers, they like Stevens very much, the big back from Northwest.
But he may not be there because New England may beat him to it. Here's Miami's.
Miami's selection in the first round is Eric Kummerow, defensive end, Ohio State.
It's an interesting choice. He's a tweener.
New England is up.
Well,
it's an interesting choice. He's a tweener. He's a big linebacker who could play down. He's about a 250-pound, 6'5", 6'6" linebacker that everybody said was an interesting player. That's the best I heard about him. Interesting.
Well, an interesting selection by the Dolphins, who go with Kummerow. And they, I guess, are projecting him as the down lineman from Ohio State. And so Miami does go defense. They did go for need, as Coach Shula said. Now they've drafted the big kid who played linebacker at Ohio State, Eric Kummerow. They can just use as much help as possible. Let's face it, the Dolphins rank what? Overall on defense last year, 26, I believe.
You know, TJ is new to this draft game. You don't go with logic in this business.
It just doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't happen.
He could turn out to be a nice pro for them.
Who, Tommy?
That's right. Why didn't they draft you? So now New England is up. And I think they might look, although they've drafted backs, Dupard with the #1 selection a couple of years ago. I think John Stevens, they might beat Pittsburgh to Stevens.
No, let's save him for Pittsburgh. I need a win.
I need a win. Brad Muster, the running back. Certainly, I think it's going to be a running back. And Z talks about the questions on Muster's leg, but somebody's got to take a chance on the kid, because I think he's not only too good a player, but he's one of those guys that's going to help you off the field as well.
That is a good point. And you talk about some teams weren't that concerned about it. It's not so much his leg. They say it's an ankle injury that they weren't that concerned with. Some were.
I'm looking at my New England notes. Dick Steinberg said not Muster. So when I talked to him, he said not Muster. I projected Lorenzo White for him. It just seems too logical. I mean, White, that so many people call the best running back, I can't see him lasting much longer.
Well, Lorenzo White is a guy that he can give the ball to 35 times a game. There is no question about that.
They've done it sometimes, too.
They've done it 4 years. Maybe Lorenzo White goes Pittsburgh. Remember George Perlis coached him in college. There's a Pittsburgh connection, perhaps.
Let's give Lorenzo to New England and Stevens to Pittsburgh. How about that?
I'm going to look at my New England notes if I can find them right here. I'm going to see what's... well, I have about 18 players written down, so I guess it's going to take me a while to sift through this. However, I'm going to go with Stevens. Maybe Aaron Cox, wide receiver. Let's go over to Bobby and Mel.
Alert the media, okay? 12.5 minutes to go. Waiting on the selection of New England, the team that's got more picks in this draft, 15 than any other team. The question about Eric Kummerow, where will he play? Now, early in the draft process, we look at a guy like him at 240 pounds. Now you say he's up to 260, which may answer the question, where's he going to play, which was your big question about it.
Well, initially, I looked at Kummerow as a tweener, a guy you didn't know if he was strong enough or was going to get big enough to play defensive end, and you didn't know if he was athletic or quick enough to be an outside linebacker. He's up to 262 now. You know, you look at him, they feel it's at the 6'7" frame you're talking about. He should be able to carry about 280, 285 in 2 or 3 years. So I think what Shula's trying to do is build up that front seven. Last year he had Graff and Bosa. Of course, he has Offerdahl. He's going to move Turner inside, maybe to a nose tackle spot. So I think in the long run, what he's trying to do is get the tall guys who can rush that passer, you know, really disrupt the quarterback to a certain extent, because all these kids, you're talking about Graff and Bosa, and now Kummerow had those long arms, and of course Kummerow has that frame to carry probably about 280. I think it was a reach. I think Kummerow should have been a second-round choice. I really do. I still think he won't be a dominant player, and I still think to a certain extent he fits into that tweener category, because when you're talking about projecting that he can carry 280, and you look at his college career as a guy, you know, he had a decent career, but I don't think he was worthy of this high a choice. I think this is another major reach. I personally would have gone against the grain a little bit, but I would have taken Craig Hayward for the simple reason that in 3rd and 2, Miami can be in a shotgun. I'm serious. And you're talking about a team that might drive up to the 45-yard line, and all of a sudden they're in that shotgun, and they throw an incomplete pass, and Roby comes out the punt. Hayward keeps those drives alive for you. So, but you know, Kumaro, I can see the reason why they took Kumaro, forcing that defensive line pick with a guy who didn't play the position in college.
And it's the first, not off the wall, but off the board prediction from your top 40. The first prediction not among your top 40. So Dolphins need defensive help. They've gone defense for the last 5 years in round 1. We're standing by. Hey, Thurman Thomas might be drafted shortly. We'll see.
It's been said that form should always follow function. But on rare occasions, the function is already so highly advanced that the form is free to pursue absolute beauty. Introducing the Mercedes-Benz 300 CE Coupe.
Every year in Zermatt, people fall for the Alpine Splendor and drop some cash at some of the best stores in Switzerland, which is okay if you have Visa Gold, because we'll not only help you get a doctor or lawyer for whatever you need, we'll deliver emergency cash and a new Visa Gold to wherever you are. And if you needed a card and cash from American Express in Zermatt, you'd have to go to Lausanne, 100 miles away. Visa Gold, it's everywhere you want to be.
Well, as you can imagine, this is a very difficult afternoon for the players that have not been selected yet. And it doesn't get any easier as the day wears on. We're sitting here in the apartment of Thurman Thomas in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Thurman, I have to ask you, is it seemed like a little bit of the pressure was released once Gaston Green was selected. Is that accurate, or were you disappointed?
Oh, I thought a lot of running backs would be taken before Gaston Green was taken by the Rams at the 14th pick. I thought Lorenzo White and Craig Hayward might be gone by now, so... but, you know, there's still a lot of good running backs out there.
Are you still thinking that you'll go in the first round?
Yes, I still think and feel that I will go in the first round.
How hard is it for you to be sitting here going through this?
Oh, it's real hard. I mean, you can see all the players that you played against going by the name is being called, and when you talk to them, they tell you what type of player you are, and your name is not called. So, in a way, it's really kind of frustrating, but, you know, I'm just have to sit back and wait my turn.
But really, you're more surprised than anything that not more running backs have gone so far. Yeah. Thurman's mother, Ann, traveled 10 hours in a car to get here to spend this afternoon with your son. It doesn't look like you're having a whole lot of fun yet. Is that?
No, I'm not having a whole lot of fun. This is just like a game. I have a nervous stomach. I have headaches. This is worse.
All right, we're ready to call the team trainer and get him in here to give some back rubs, and we're going to go back to New York right now. Chris?
All right, Andrea and Thurman, thank you very much. New England didn't take long. They probably can't believe that Stevens and Muster are still up there. They had a feeling that Cox would still be there. Now we have a little conferral on the card, but I'm just covering my...
That's right.
No, I don't think Dick Steinberg thought that both Stevens and Muster would still be available. Maybe one of those two. And so I know that Randall McDaniel is a guy that New England likes also. That's a guard, but I'm not saying he's going to be that selection.
Now, there's a guy who's going to be a fine NFL player for some
New
years.
England selects John Stevens, running back, Northwest Louisiana State.
You got that one, Boomer?
Pittsburgh is up.
Covered our ground here. So John Stevens, New England needs to, as we all know, pep up their running game. Now they hope Craig James comes back from the surgery. They had a Reggie Ducard who started to look good last year. Now late in the year they started to run the ball better because they drafted Bruce Armstrong and Danny Villa, two guys on the offensive line that played very well for them. But New England needs to run the ball better, and with John Stevens, a sculptured guy, a man that played at Northwestern State, you say where? That's in Louisiana, but this is a place to produce Joe Delaney, a guy that showed in the postseason, Zim and Tommy, that he can handle the big level competition. As we look at Stevens, I don't think there was a question, right, with you guys, that even though he played at a smaller school, that he could play big time.
He's 230 and he runs a 4.41.
That's pretty good, isn't it?
That's right. Better than I can do.
That's right.
Yes. I had a 4.4 from the 10. But we were going to look at Stevens, but trust me, New England has looked at him plenty, and they like the way he can fit in. He can catch the ball, but he's a bigger back than the guys that they have. And,
well, I think that's the key thing. We knew he was looking for, that they were looking for the big back. We talked here about Muster. This guy Stevens is, like you say, what, 225, 30 pounds or so, and he runs a 4.40.
What does this do to Craig James? I guess he's trade bait now.
Maybe not.
They got mostly Tatafu, and they got Berman from last year. How many fullbacks can you carry?
You can never have enough pitching. Just remember that. And so now what did we say? We said Stevens might go to New England. I think Pittsburgh has to go Lorenzo White. I think that's the way they have to look. Agree?
I would think so, unless they want the big back and they take the hometown product, Ironhead.
No.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. But what do we know? That's why we're coming back right after this timeout as the first round continues here at the Marriott Marquis in New York. Next up, the Pittsburgh Steelers with the 18th overall.
The S-Class. The engineering flagships of Mercedes-Benz. And something more. Automobiles that evoke memories of a day long past. And a car so exotic that it turned a young boy's head. A heritage of legendary automobiles that have inspired dreams. Automobiles that have made the three-pointed star a universal symbol of engineering excellence. The Mercedes-Benz S-Class. Nothing less than the best of every big Mercedes there ever was.
We are awaiting the choice of the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have over 10 minutes to make their selection, but John Stevens is on his way to New England. A guy that you might not normally look when you first look at the state of Louisiana, but at closer inspection, there was no question this guy can play. Louisiana, the Bayou State where good times in football are time-honored traditions. The Saints step to the Benson Boogie, while in Baton Rouge, LSU steps on to sold-out Tiger Stadium. The town of Natchitoches lies 160 miles northwest of Baton Rouge, but in reality, they're worlds apart. Natchitoches is known to few outside Louisiana, the exceptions being NFL scouts. They come to see Northwestern State's John Stevens, whose power and speed should play well in the NFL.
Really, John's going to be a better pro than he was here at Northwestern, but he's a great athlete, the best athlete I've ever been associated with, and you know, I think what he does in the pros will justify the high draft choice that he's going to become. I think, you know, here at Northwestern, he's had a real good career. He broke Joe Delaney's records, but I don't think he achieved nearly what he's capable of achieving in a pro, say on a pro level in a pro system.
Northwestern State alumni include Dolphins All-Pro Mark Duper, Louisiana native Bobby Hebert, who led the Saints to their first playoff berth in '87, and the late Joe Delaney, forever remembered by his school. John Stevens knows he's in select company.
I feel it's an honor that I'm being, you know, recognized like that. I feel that, you know, I did a lot of great things for Northwestern. I feel that Northwestern did a lot of great things for me. But it's just an honor bestowed upon me to be looked upon that high.
On his way to stardom at Northwestern, John Stevens broke every rushing record of Joe Delaney's. But Stevens wasn't always a star. In fact, he wasn't always a running back.
He was really a better linebacker than running back, probably. But so he's a hard-nosed kid. He's never really been a prima donna as such coming up through high school where he was a stud running back. But he had to learn to block. He had to do all the... he had to be in the trenches, so to speak, and I think that's a big asset for him. He's also a real good receiver. You know, he caught over 60 passes for us in 4 years, and coming from a tailback position, it's hard to get the ball, you know, into or get a guy downfield very far to catch passes. But he was one of our best receivers.
When we came in as freshmen, they have a time trials or whatever you may call them. And I ran and I did all the events, and I had broken just about, or a majority of all the freshman times. And I knew then I was ahead of my class. I was out in front of the people that previously came in.
John never played at Northwestern State in front of more than 15,000 fans, while in Baton Rouge, 75,000 plus in national TV audiences watched fellow All-American Wendell Davis grab the passes and grab the headlines.
You get a different feeling every time you play a game. You think about it. You read the paper the next morning that says LSU played in front of 58,000 or Tulane or whatever, and you have to wonder, you know, sometimes what would I have done under those situations.
John Stevens, he could have gone to LSU. If he had gone to LSU, he'd have played behind Dalton Hilliard and the kid that's with the Detroit Lions, and probably by his third year there would have been a starter. Here he came in, he started as a freshman. His best year was his sophomore year, just like Bobby Hebert's best year was his sophomore year. And had they not had those great sophomore years, or if they'd have gone to a major school where they were still in a backup role as a sophomore and then got their injuries or whatever that affected them later on in their career, they may not have ever had the opportunities they've had now.
As John Stevens enters the NFL, he has no visions of grandeur, and his personal goals are secondary to those of the teams.
I'm all for winning and whatever it takes to win, whether it's playing fullback or tailback. That's what I'm going to do. In the near future, I'm going to practice hard. I'm going to work out hard. I'm going to train to be the best that I can be. And hopefully one day, I'm going to make one football team in the NFL a hell of a football player.
John Stevens going from Louisiana here, the Steelers pick.
Jones, defensive end, Eastern Kentucky.
And so,
Minnesota.
like we said, Lorenzo Aaron Jones going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Well, the Steelers feeling that with Ernest Jackson and...
now we're tap dancing. Admit that we're all shocked.
We're wrong.
Okay. I mean, we're all shocked by this pick. Let's face it. It's our first, well, it's a second shocker after Kumaro.
They've got guys on the defensive line that can play the run. They don't have a pass rusher, do they?
Well, I don't know. I mean, they've been drafting pass rushers since you know, 1910. I mean, where are these guys that they've drafted? I mean, Darrell Sims is in Cleveland. I mean, you know, these people are scattered all over the place. Keith Gary, you know, hasn't been heard from. I mean,
Willis,
they keep drafting him. Well, Willis is okay, but they keep drafting him. Now they got another. Well, I hope he can rush the passer. But they have a shot at real quality running backs. I mean, their offense is going down the drain. Their defense is playing well. Tony Dungy's a great coach. I don't know. I'm scratching my head over this one. You know, he's a good player. I just hope he comes through for him. My son's a Steelers fan.
Oh, that makes the pick okay. I know that Cleveland in the same division like Aaron Jones. Tommy, Joe Green's a defensive line coach. Think he might be able to help here?
They talk about this kid having a lack of upper body strength, lack of technique work, which it probably can be attributed to the fact that he's gone to a smaller school. Again, I question the choice. I just question Joe, even though Joe Green is the coach. I mean, Joe was known for a little bit of upper body strength.
Yes, he was. I know one thing about Aaron Jones, and this is late information, that they just this week, there was some question about a disc problem in his back. Obviously, the Steelers either don't think much of that news or going to go full speed and damn the torpedoes and go ahead anyway.
In his defense, I heard, I mean, he was one of the names that you hear a lot of right in pre-draft week. 2 weeks ago, all you heard was Gaston Green. That was the name you heard. You heard Muster. Then all of a sudden you didn't hear him so much. But this kid's name, you heard a lot of people mentioning. So he's had good workouts and his stock has really risen in the draft.
And so once again, we wait on the running backs. And guys like Lorenzo White and Thurman Thomas are there, and Minnesota's next, and they're not going to pick a running back. How about Randall McDaniel, guard, Arizona State to Minnesota? We'll find out in a minute.
I'm not panicking yet, but Ian is our major weapon for this meeting, and I don't see him.
I spoke to him last night. He said he'll meet us there.
What, is he taking a different flight?
He's not flying, he's driving.
He is driving the 300 miles.
He just bought a 190 class Mercedes. Says he's never driven anything like it.
Well, that's great, but why would he want to do all that driving when he doesn't have to?
I guess that's the whole point.
You can hear the understandable pride when modern brewers talk about the time they spend brewing their beers, or the time they spend lagering them. True, this reflects effort and care. But for Budweiser, some things take even more time. Like waiting for a big beechwood tree to grow from a small beechwood tree. For all the years past, and the years to come, this is the kind of time and the kind of care that go into your beer. Beechwood aged Budweiser.
I'm even jazzier in my BVDs.
Hey, I drive even faster in my BVDs.
I'm more intimidating in my BVDs.
BVD brand underwear. Whatever you do, that extra comfort helps you do it better.
I became a TV heartthrob in my BVDs.
America, do it better. Do it in your BVDs.
At my age, I've done just about everything in my BVDs.
ESPN's coverage of the 1988 NFL Draft is brought to you by Mercedes-Benz, engineered like no other car in the world. By Bud Light, everything else is just a light. And by Centel, the company where people connect.
We are waiting to see what Minnesota does with the 19th selection in the first round. Welcome back to our live and continuous coverage of the National Football League Draft. About 10.5 minutes to go for the Vikings. Let's step back for a second. Look at Aaron Jones, the selection for the 4th time in this decade. Steelers have used the #1 pick for a defensive lineman as Aaron Jones follows in the footsteps of Keith Gary, Darrell Sims, and, of course, Gabe Rivera, who was tragically paralyzed. Out of Eastern Kentucky, Aaron Jones started at defensive tackle for 3 years in the 5'2". Possibly can carry a little bit more weight than about 250. He was the co-MVP defensively of the Ohio Valley Conference. This is the guy, Mel, who can get all over the playing field.
Great athlete. That's the key here. And the fact that, Zim mentioned the workouts, but he also had the last 3 games of the year was one of the more dominant outside pass rushers in the country. You see that pass rush ability. Gave him a 4.9 for that. Strength of 4.3, although lately his workouts as far as strength have been outstanding. 28 reps at 225 is phenomenal. Quickness, excellent. He's been running in the 4.7s. Has to improve against the run a little bit, but as a pass rusher, this kid can dominate.
You look at what the Steelers have done with their draft. When they were the dominant team in pro football through the stretch when they had the 4 Super Bowl championships, they had 11 #1 selections in one stretch. 7 of those 11 went to the Pro Bowl. And since then, since Pittsburgh has not been the dominant playoff team, they have not done well at all. In fact, you take a look at the 1980s, of their first 2-round selections, they've gotten only 1 Pro Bowl player in this decade.
Well, the thing about the selection, when you look at it, I think the fact that New England took Stevens, I think affected this choice, because now Pittsburgh went Jones, which affected the Cleveland Browns, who obviously thought that Jones would be a great choice at that point. But when you look at the board right now, you still see Randall McDaniel. You still see Anthony Newman. There's a lot of good football players still on the board at this point. We're near the end of the first round. So you talked about Aaron Jones being a fast riser. Terry Williams from Bethune-Cookman's another kid to keep an eye on, because as a cornerback, there's a lot of clubs in the NFL liked him ahead of Dixon as the #1 cornerback in this draft. And a lot of people will hear Terry Williams' name mentioned at some point in this late first, early second round and say, who's he? But Terry Williams can be an all-pro player within 2 years.
We've seen some reaches. Maybe the Raiders' second selection of Terry McDaniel minor reach. Eric Kummerow of Ohio State selected by Miami. Your top 40's behind us. You had him rated 126, which means he'd be way over there if the board continued over there. So we'll see what happens out in the hallway. Minnesota is up. They have used the entire pro personnel process of building this team. Jerry Burns, what is he looking at, the needs of his team, looking at the draft?
We think we need some secondary help, number one. Number two, we're looking for a defensive line play. Defensive linemen are tough to get, particularly players that have the ability to play in the National Football League. And then number three, we'd be looking down the line at some offensive line help.
So Jerry Burns, what do they need? Ned? Defensive line help, certainly. Who are they going for?
I think the best player on the board right now is Randall McDaniel. I really do. I think when you look at athletic ability, he's in the top 5. Tremendous vertical jump, outstanding pulling speed to get outside for Darren Nelson and DJ Dozier. I would take, at this point, Randall McDaniel.
And the Rams, certainly. There is Randall McDaniel at number 13, just behind is the highest player on the top 40 with the hit parade. With the bullet right now, not yet selected. So that's where we stand with the board. Top 40 players. We've had a couple of minor reaches, one big-time reach, and about 7 minutes to go on Minnesota's pick. And the Rams get their second pick in this first round, midway through the first round of the NFL draft. We'll be back to New York after this.
You can't beat the South Jersey locations or the facilities. Plus, Center City and Atlantic City are real close by.
Actually, I'm just staying here a short time in a Corman suite. But if I'm ever transferred up here permanently, I get a Corman apartment. My wife would flip.
Corman suite accommodations compared to a hotel, it's no contest.
I have a great apartment that I'm very proud of. And it's probably in the best spot in New Jersey.
I'd say Corman really works for me.
We're the best protection under the sun. Stop at Arnold Safe and Lock Company in Pennsauken. Their qualified locksmiths will show you how to protect your valuables. Once you see their showroom of home, office, and computer safes, you'll realize you don't have to shop anywhere else, especially since Arnold's offers service and installation on everything they sell. The locksmiths at Arnold's want to educate you to be sure you pick the right safe or lock. What better protection under the sun could you ask for?
Is in May. To the ice, where hockey's hottest teams face off for the coveted Stanley Cup. To Paris, where the world's best players battle in the French Open. To the Indianapolis 500 time trials. To Churchill Downs on Derby Day for all the races leading up to the Run for the Roses. To Jack Nicklaus's hometown for the PGA Memorial. And to the 50-yard indoor war. Arena football. All in May on ESPN.
Just moments ago here in New York, the Marriott Marquis, the Vikings made their selection. This is what happened.
Minnesota has selected Randall McDaniel, guard, Arizona State. Los Angeles Rams are up on a choice from Indianapolis.
All right, another notch in your belt, Mel. Randall McDaniel out of Arizona State, who was, as we showed you, the top unselected player on the board. Let's take a look at a guy when he came out of high school, a real skinny guy, played tight end, and has transformed himself into a pulling guard with great technique, great attitude. They tell the story. What, he can, with full pads, do a 360 dunk of a basketball?
He's a phenomenal athlete. You can see him on the footage here, how he can just blow people off the ball. He can pull, and look at him there. Now, that's a functional strength. It's not weight room strength. He uses his ability on the field. You see that quickness? Outstanding. Gave him a perfect grade there, 5-0. Equally good run and pass blocker. Strength, even though he doesn't have that weight room strength, he utilizes all his tools on the field. There are a lot of clubs in the NFL that felt like if the Arizona State Sun Devils would have used him as a defensive end because of his athletic ability, he could have been one of the first 2 or 3 players selected in this draft. But as an offensive guard, he slid down a little bit. Tackles go a little higher, as we know. They're a little more valuable. But Randall McDaniel is a blue-chip athlete, and at this point, a value-type selection.
Clock is running on the Rams. Seattle would have selected next, but they took Brian Bosworth last year in the supplemental draft. That was their first-round pick, so it's the Rams with a pick through Indy, then Houston and Cleveland. Now we start to see the dominoes falling. Quick projection the next 3.
Rams is a tough one to gauge. I thought Craig Hayward would fit in perfectly. He's still there. Aaron Cox is the wide receiver that they would really need at this point. Danny Stubbs is a pass rusher. This is a team that has a lot of needs, and I think Danny Stubbs, Aaron Cox, and of course, I still say Hayward's there. But I look at Houston. Don't be surprised. Terry Williams is an outstanding cornerback from Bethune-Cookman. Cleveland, now maybe a linebacker. I like Freddie Strickland at that point, even though he moves outside, leave Junkin inside. Freddie Strickland is a blue-chip athlete, and at that outside linebacker position could be a pretty good choice for the Cleveland Browns.
All right, so the clock running on the Rams, though. Pick number 20 21 hole. And first time around, Chris, of course, the Rams going for the hometown selection of Gaston Green.
So they got their running back, Bobby and Mel, the first time. Now they certainly need pass rushers. They might go with Aaron Cox, wide receiver, Arizona State. And you know, we've had our first Arizona State player go with McDaniel. Could be 5 of them in the first 2 rounds. Maybe it's Cox. Real quick, Joe Theismann's back with us. You like McDaniel and Minnesota's scheme of offense?
I think so, Chris. I think he fits into their type of athletes. They do a lot of movement with their people up front. They require them to be good athletes. He fits right into what you would expect for a Minnesota Viking offensive lineman. I agree with you, though, as far as the next pick goes. I think, considering the fact that Ernie Zampese now is the offensive coordinator at the Rams, I'd have to say that they want to beef up that aspect of it, with Ron Brown going on to pursue his career in track and want to become the world's fastest man instead of the NFL's fastest man. I think they'll go wide receiver next. I really think that that's an area that they'll go into.
If that's the case, Cox would seem to be that guy, 5'9", maybe not the largest in the world, but certainly a solid choice. Zim, what are your thoughts on the Rams?
Wendell Davis from LSU or Aaron Cox. Just to differ with you, I'll say Wendell Davis.
Okay. Tommy?
Well, I had written down here Wendell Davis from LSU. It says receiver, 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 but I didn't know that Aaron Cox would be left by now.
And the suspense is killing us. Here it is.
Rams on a choice from Indianapolis. Select Aaron Cox, wide receiver, Arizona State. Houston is up.
Well, sometimes you get him right. And Aaron Cox is a bona fide first-round player. He's an accomplished receiver. You know what you're getting with him. It's not something as if you say, well, gee, he was injured some. No, he plays the full seasons. And so 2 back-to-back Sun Devils go in the first round. McDaniel to Minnesota, and now Aaron Cox, wide receiver, goes to the Rams. So Jim Everett will have somebody to throw to, that is for sure. Aaron Cox at 5'9", can do some running, and he will just fit in as they try and develop Everett, Joe, more and more.
Well, not only that, Chris, don't forget, Ron Brown was only 5'9". Right. I mean, they haven't necessarily taken a guy who's much smaller than what they've had before. But again, it sort of gives you an idea of the direction that the Rams want to go in. They're going to be a more aggressive offensive team. They're not going to run the ball 35, 40 times. They don't want to do that. They want to try and get some quick points on the board. A guy like Aaron Cox is going to help him.
He averaged almost 20 yards of reception at Tempe. And that just tells you that's a home run ball.
Right.
Well, sorry, Jim, I took Cox, you know?
I mean, it seems, you know, a lot of these teams, like Miami, it seems, has been trying to draft defense forever, and their defense stays the same. The Rams, it seems, have been trying to get big play offensive people forever, and their offense stays the same. I mean, I don't know. There just seems to be something wrong when they try and plug in the right part into the wrong box.
Well, Robinson certainly will be able to run the ball better. This kid, what he's going to do is help you stretch the football field. He's going to make people think about the pass. And as Joe said, now you're not going to see backs carrying the ball 30, 35 times a game for him. You'll see him going for the home run ball.
Well, that's if Zampese has his way.
Right? Well, this is the point I wanted to bring up. Zim mentioned the fact that, okay, you see Miami drafting defense, they've stayed the same. You see the Rams drafting offense, they've stayed the same. What you see as a change for the Rams, though, is the coordination of it. John Robinson will still definitely be in charge, but I think he wants to turn a little bit more over to Ernie Zampese and give him we're going to see a little bit more of that San Diego type of offense.
All right, so Aaron Cox, the 5th wide receiver that goes in the first round, which ties a record. We're just hearing the announcement from 73. 5 wide receivers. Could there be a 6th? We shall see. The next choice, Houston, who went wide receiver with Jeffries last year. That didn't work. They won't go wide receiver. But do they? Well, the Oilers can go a lot of directions, and we'll be back to see what they do in just a moment.
Today, you need an insurance company that looks out for you year after year. A company with experience, measured in centuries instead of years. A company with a firm financial footing. You need the Hartford, the insurance people of ITT. When you need us most, we're at our best. That's the Hartford difference.
My husband Ted used to be the world's worst barbecuer until we got this Charbroil gas grill. Now, he's a regular barbecue genius. You see, a Charbroil has this flare fighter system that helps him control his habit of burning expensive meat. But the real secret is these charcoal briquettes. Only Charbroil gas grills have them. They give everything Ted cooks a real charcoal taste. Yep, real charcoal taste. And 3 nights a week out of the kitchen, he's not the only genius in this family.
Because he could go...
The Houston Oilers began the week with a pair of first-round selections, but of course they traded their first one away to the Raiders, so now they're back drafting where they're supposed to. And the Oilers are up next with the 21st overall selection. Pete Axthelm has been wondering if there's a wedding nearby, because when the Oilers, you have to think of these things. Ax?
Chris, this is the time of year, you know, it's the off season. I think it's time for all of us on game day to start mending some fences that we may have broken over the season. And one way to do it, I'd like to point out that whatever he happens to do at wedding receptions in Buffalo, Lad Herzeg has turned out to be an absolutely first-rate drafter. The Oilers have become good. They're absolutely stocked with a lot of number ones. He gets them. Jerry Glanville makes them really tough, and they go out and play. In fact, the role reversals that happen in this sport are so strange. We used to look for the Raiders to get players like this. Now the Raiders are taking All-American boys like Tim Brown, and it's the Oilers are taking guys who, if they could skate, would probably be playing in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Quite a change, and this one's for you, lad, and who knows? You may be next, Sam White. Back to you, Chris.
Axe, you can always count on the Axe with some observations. Listen, they all have to wear the black shirts if they get drafted by the Oilers, or what?
Sooner or later.
Sooner or later. All right, and so we'll get back to you. Of course, you're in Buddy's den there, as Buddy may go defensively, but that's the Eagles, and that's another story. So the Houston Oilers are up. They go Jeffries last year, wide receiver. They don't look to go back there. They went Highsmith last year. They got Rozier. Could they? I mean, I still hear, Paul, maybe they're looking at another back, and with these guys available, do they do that even with Highsmith and Rozier?
Well, the back that interests them is Muster. They're not interested in Lorenzo White because they've got a Lorenzo White clone in their backfield, Mike Rozier. Muster interests them because he could go into the U-back spot if they go 2 tight ends. And Charlton is their highest-rated linebacker right now. I know they would like to get Spielman at some time. They figure maybe they can get him in the 2nd round. So I'd say Charlton or Muster.
I'm going to agree with you on Charlton because it just makes sense that the Oilers can do some work defensively. Houston is a team that's on the move, as Axe mentioned, Tommy, a team that, with a couple of key picks, could really get not only from a playoff team into maybe a real Super Bowl contender, certainly out of the AFC.
I think they can certainly compete now. They have a lot of tools offensively, and although I don't know exactly who they're going to get, I think they're going to look for defensive help and probably at the linebacker position. Charlton would certainly be a good pick for them.
The Oilers, of course, are going to be Team ESPN this year, as they're on our Sunday night telecast twice. So Joe, you'll be watching them, and they've already got the Sean Jones, some help at defensive end. Does the linebacker make sense, or do you still beef up the running game?
I still think you got to beef up the running game. You got to protect Warren Moon. They've got the great wide receivers. They established that last year. They can get into the playoffs. I think Jerry took that football team maybe even a little further than he thought they might go with the revamping that he's done. But defensively, you see Jerry Glanville, and he's a tough, hard-nosed fighter type of a coach. He's going to want to get somebody going on the defensive side and continue to mix it up. My number 1 selection would probably be Brad Muster, though. I think they want to help out those halfbacks in the backfield. Really takes a lot of pressure off a quarterback when you can run the football.
As we still see those backs sit there, Muster and Lorenzo White, and of course, we're with Thurman Thomas as he agonizes, is a lot of names on the running back board staying up there a little longer than you might have thought. We're waiting for that run on backs. So when will it begin? The Oilers have their first selection coming up, and we'll be back to New York in just a moment.
Not just another credit card. It's the exciting new Citibank NFL Visa card that's different from any credit card you've ever carried or seen. It says football is your sport and shows the world your favorite NFL team. For a free 6-month membership, call 1-800-NFL-VISA. Every time you use your card, you earn points you can redeem for free NFL Pro Line gear. And as an NFL Visa card member, you're automatically entered in our Super Bowl 23 sweepstakes. Call 1-800-NFL-VISA and join the team.
You give it your best, so we give you ours, and things keep looking better all the time. Lose sight, it's a science and an art. You get great color from the start. Lose sight when it's coming from the heart. It's the science and the art of painting.
Give it your best. Give it Lucite.
The Monte Carlo Open, you'll be able to see 12 o'clock Eastern time tonight. And Wilfred Solly, what happens very often is that the clay court season in Europe is determined by what happens here in Monte Carlo.
Very important tournament. It is the start. We have seen some upsets this week, and of course Ivan Lendl, the #1 player in the world, he had problems. That he's going to be there, and of course the Terry Talon, Martin Haiti, that's an exciting one, and it should be a great afternoon.
It may be a good indication for you as to just how well Ivan Lendl is going to play for the rest of this portion of the year. Join us tonight.